It's the Sonic Truth live Dynasty focused podcast brought to you by the Player Profiler Podcast Network. Say that 10 times fast. I'm Alan Seslowsky of RotoWire.com, moderator of the Sonic Truth podcast, along with Theo, Gremminger, and of course the Podfather. The band is back together after a few week hiatus of substitute hosts. Thank you to Maddie and to Cody for stepping in, but I missed you guys. I feel like I want to do like a group hug, a kiss. Theo, give me a kiss on the lips.
A kiss?
Come on. Give me a
kiss on
Theo.
the lips?
Yeah.
Alan, I want to give you a quick shout out because I got a lot of cameos coming in for the world famous draft kit, which is just going to be incredible what we're putting together. But Alan dropped one of the greatest Travis Kelce videos you're ever going to see and followed it up with one of the best Bijan Robinson videos you're ever going to see. Our own Matt Kelly crushed it on the Jamar Chase video, but I want to give Alan a big shout out because those were awesome to get. And it's really, really coming together. I can't wait for everybody to get a chance to see it. But a big hat tip to you, Alan. You had your vacation and it rejuvenated you. It turned you into like Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese level.
It was amazing.
No, I appreciate it, guys. I always like to give, everyone in the fantasy industry, you have a great idea for a draft kit, and Theo, that's no easy task putting it together for the redraft seasonal kit, and everyone puts them in, but I always like to give you guys a nice polished piece of work every year. I do that for RotoWire on the YouTube page too, but if you're going to ask me to do something, I'm going to do it right, and that's why I told you, give me time to clean it up, and I'm glad you like it. I want to represent for y'all, so.
We're going to promote the hell out of it. That's going to be one of our lead promotional videos for the draft kit was the Alan Seslowsky, Travis Kelce take. Hot take. I also had a hot Jamar Chase take.
Yeah. Big time.
It's not hot, though. Really? Jamar Chase, 101. Is that really that hot? It felt hot while I was doing it, but then I told some people, and they were like, that's not that hot.
Yeah, it's not. Really? I mean, the guy's locked in as like the 102 or the 103, and you have him at the 101. He's fantastic. It's not like that bold, but it's still awesome to see, Matt. You're planting your flag.
What it's really doing, guys, is it's like this year more than ever. It's like, don't pay attention to like, oh, this guy's number one, this guy's number two. There's any one of these first round picks can go in the top 5. No, I've seen Jamar Chase go at 1. I've seen him go at 3. I've seen him go at 6. It really depends, and this is what's so great about fantasy football. But you guys, Billy, all of them are honing in the seasonal rankings. But the biggest complaint we get on this podcast, guys, is that we don't hit them with Dynasty. So we promoted the draft kit. Let's get into some Dynasty stuff now that we've had some time to digest the draft, some time to kind of see where guys are landing. After June 1st, we certainly expect some veterans to be signed, but I made a list of situations here that we need to really think about where we're going to value these guys for in your Dynasty rankings as you constantly and dynamically tune them up. So we'll start with Theo here, man. Sam Howell. Let's remember, Washington did not draft a QB. Not even one of these 4th round guys that, seem to be very in vogue picks in these Dynasty startup drafts. The Aiden O'Connell types, everyone trying to find the next Brock Purdy. So is it time to start taking Sam Howell seriously? Like, is this a real superflex asset as people are entering their startup drafts?
To me, I think he's an ideal quarterback 3 that you're not going to have to spend a lot on. I wouldn't be that comfortable with him.
I disagree with
as
you
a QB 2. I think that fantasy. So Alan, fantasy wise, I think that he's got a little bit of a floor if he's starting because he's got rushing ability.
He has good receivers.
Good receivers and rushing ability, but
I don't know if he has rushing ability. By the way,
he has a little bit of rushing.
You've seen a lot like Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was running free in the open field, right? Scoring touchdowns in the Truman Show. That was the Zach Wilson career at BYU. And then when he got to the NFL, he's not a running quarterback. Sam Howell runs a 5.0 40. Just because in a particular system in college, he's able to run for 500 yards, that doesn't mean anything about what he's going to do in the NFL. It's much more about what is your speed score. Okay? So with Desmond Ridder, he didn't run as much because they had great weaponry at Cincinnati, but turns out, he runs a 4.5. This guy can easily run for 300-400 yards in the NFL in a full season. Sam Howell, no. That's not who Sam Howell is. Sam Howell does have the weapons, though. That's what bolsters his floor. but he was a day 3 pick. He's undersized. He is not someone that he is a backup quarterback in the league. He looks like he's Case Keenum. I mean, there's no difference. What are you talking about, right? In a super flex format, 2 QB, I want a better third quarterback than Sam Howell. When you tell the people, Theo, that he's the ideal third quarterback, no, he's not the ideal. He is a desperation third quarterback in Superflex, and I am. But maybe you're a little more YOLO in Superflex and 2 QB. I think Alan and I are a little more conservative. My ideal third quarterback in Superflex is a Kenny Pickett, a first-round pick, a guy that is actually mobile.
Kenny Pickett would be a fantastic third quarterback.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic third quarterback.
That's what I'm talking. And it's worth the investment. It's worth the investment of my larger point is, based on the volatility of the quarterback position, and there is some volatility with the quarterback position, guys bust out of nowhere. No one thought just 2 years ago that Carson Wentz would be out of the league. Did you imagine this would be possible? No. But it happens, right? So there's that. There's injuries to quarterbacks. We have to always go back and remind ourselves how many quarterbacks missed games in previous years. There were consecutive years where Aaron Rodgers missed a half season. Remember the Aaron Rodgers hamstring? You have the Matthew Stafford collarbone. All these things. So it is worth the investment. It's like with your parents, when you buy a car, when you're a kid. It is worth the investment. For me, car insurance is a ripoff, right? I don't need the car insurance, right? I'm a great driver. I'm responsible. I've seen it all. I've learned my lessons. It's not about you.
It's the insurance is for the other crazies out there.
Right. The people that need the insurance are like 17-year-olds that are flooring it on like cul-de-sac streets, right, and whipping around, right? That's who needs the insurance. Okay, so there are certain people where it's worth the insurance. In a super flex league, it is well worth it to get that third quarterback and invest before you feel like the round before you feel like you want to do it is the round you should draft a quarterback. If you're like, I'm going to draft a quarterback next round, or you start to get that feeling like I probably need a third quarterback, but maybe a round. No, don't wait. Get him. And then you don't get stuck with a Sam Howell like Theo over here.
No, I will not be stuck. I will not be stuck with any Sam Howell this year. That's not one of my targets. I'm trying to make an optimistic case for Allen here. But I will say that, Matt, your Kenny Pickett call was very good, and also what Kenny Pickett also provides you is potentially tremendous trade equity. If he can take a step forward this year, then that becomes the sort of asset that you can move and have another maybe a veteran quarterback back and something on top of it that can help you win this season. So like Kenny Pickett has a lot of outs in Dynasty right now. He's interesting. We talk about weapons. We like Kenny Pickett's weapons as well. We like them a lot. So it's an interesting year for him for sure. And I like your Desmond Ridder call as well. Like Alan, people who are considering Sam Howell, like Desmond Ridder has way more of a potential 2-year path as the starting quarterback than Sam Howell does. Matt referenced, he's got more natural ability. He was drafted higher. And we like the weapons there in Atlanta. We love Bijan Robinson. We love Drake London. We like Kyle Pitts. And also, I think that there's a potential that he could get priced out, that Atlanta could kind of price themselves out of drafting one of these elite quarterbacks coming up this year, whereas Washington could be pretty bad, Alan, too, with Sam Howell behind center.
Wasn't Sam Howell, guys, considered to be the first overall pick before that last season? Wasn't he in contention for the number 1 overall pick in the Kenny Pickett draft class the year before their last year in school? Like I saw a lot of mock drafts the way too early, and it had Sam Howell as the QB1, and then I guess he had a poor season. You guys follow college a lot closer than I do.
Well, so Justin Ross was in contention to be the wide receiver 1 too.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying it's like.
And are you out here like trusting Justin Ross? What are you talking about? Who cares?
I'm just saying, like, when you get
the entire 4th round went by in day 3, and no one drafted Sam Howell.
Yep. Well,
there were teams in the 4th round last year that needed quarterback, and they said no thanks.
Yep.
He's 6'1". He runs a 5.07. His best comparable is Sam Darnold. He's Sam Darnold without the draft capital. What are you What? And the whole fascination in fantasy has always been those goddamn 800 rushing yards he had in his final year at North Carolina, as if that mattered. The year before that, 146 rushing yards. The year before that, 35 rushing yards. Who do you think the guy that runs the 5.05 is? Do you think he's the guy that ran for 35 yards, ran for 146 yards, or the guy that ran for 828 yards?
I think
Who do you
Theo's
think he really
point,
is?
though, listen, I think what Theo's point was, and this is where I was going to back him up, was when you get into the deep waters of Superflex and you're in trouble and you're in the ocean, you fell over the cruise ship and you need a life preserver, there's worse things to hang on to than Sam Howell. And we'll continue that conversation in a minute. Let's just take a quick break, fellas. We're going to get a quick word here from FFPC. As everybody knows, they're sponsored this podcast. Best place to play Dynasty, best ball, and even high-stakes redraft. We'll be back right after this, talking about more of the key landing spots 3 weeks after the draft.
You know, people always ask me, hey, what is the World Series of fantasy or the Super Bowl of fantasy football? And it's easy. It's the FFPC, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. It's a $6 million prize pool. And they've had their Never Too Early Best Ball leagues cranking since February. And so the FFPC is the answer to so many questions. Hey, where's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC. That's why we partner with them. If you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, seasonal, best ball, Dynasty, go to the FFPC. And don't forget, promo code Underworld gets you $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team, no matter what team it is, no matter what format it is, at the FFPC. Go do it.
We're back. It's the Sonic Truth Dynasty Focus Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by PlayerProfiler.com. Alan Seslowsky from RotoWire, along with Theo Gremminger and the Podfather. Podfather, I just want to address something last week. Anand Nadori had that tweet about Bijan Robinson, if he made the Hall of Fame, would be a bad pick no matter what. And he got flamed for it. And Theo, one of the things I was just thinking about this, and I think this is a part of a larger issue in fantasy football, you know, the process bros. And let me caveat this by saying I think Anand is one of the best and most unique voices in the space. I'm happy he's here. So this is not a punch at Anand, but
no, get that preface in there, Alan.
Yeah, well, because it's true.
And politically, you need to do that.
With all due respect coming.
Yeah, with all, yes. You need to get that in there.
Well, this is what I think I was thinking of an analogy for what he said. And just if anyone doesn't know, Anand was talking about even if Bijan Robinson ends up as a Hall of Fame player, that he was still a bad pick because running backs are lower positional value taken in the top 10. And I was thinking about blackjack. Do you guys play blackjack ever in casinos?
Absolutely. When I'm in Vegas, Alan, you find me at the blackjack table.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Theo. If you're having 18 in front of you and the dealer is showing a 7, what's the process play? You have an 18 every single time. But what if you hit? What if you hit and you pull and you double down on that 18 and you pull a 3? You have 21, deal of flips, you have 17. It was the right decision. Bad process, right decision. In Anand's example, we already know that Bijan's a Hall of Fame player, right? So the process doesn't matter anymore. So that's where I think his logic was flawed, is that we already know the result in his theoretical example. Now, have Anand said this, if he said anything less than the Hall of Fame, Bijan was a bad pick, then it's a sound tweet. Theo, does that make sense?
Yes, I think that you took like umbrage with the Hall of Fame part of it, where if he has that big of a career, yeah. And I think that's a fair argument. I think Anand's big argument was it doesn't matter how a running back does because it was the incorrect process to use a top 10 pick on a running back. So I can sort of see both sides here. I think I know what side Matt Kelly is going to take.
Both sides. What are you guys talking about? This is.
I mean, if the guy makes if the guy makes the Hall of Fame,
painfully obvious. This is like talking to someone who just stepped out of a time machine from the year 1200 and is insisting to you, no, the world is flat. It's like, we're past this, guys. We're past thinking running the ball has value, except for a handful of situations on the football field. Yes, there's a handful of situations on the football field where running the ball is a positive decision, right? Results in a potentially better outcome than throwing the ball. But more often than not, you want to throw the ball. And the best teams are telling us this, right? The best teams, the Bills, the Chiefs, what are they doing? They're leaning pass. They're not investing at all in the running game. How many running backs did the Chiefs draft? You guys know?
They drafted Price late.
Right? They have an undrafted guy in Jerick McKinnon, who's been a journeyman that's been bouncing around the league, and they're riding with him and a 7th rounder. And that's the Chiefs. Now, everyone talks about how smart Andy Reid is, and how genius the Chiefs are. And they are so smart, the way they've constructed the team, and how they traded Tyreek Hill. It was a master stroke to rebuild on the fly. And yet, they should have drafted a running back in the first round, actually. If they knew he would be a Hall of Famer, that was a mistake not to draft it. No, they're not. They're doing it right. They're doing the painful, obvious thing. It's so painfully obvious that the last thing you want to do is invest any kind of valuable capital in the running game. And I'm not
Nobody's
just talking about
that.
running back. We're talking about nose tackle. We're talking about middle linebacker. We're talking about strong safety. That you shouldn't be using first-round picks on these guys, period. Now, with a strong safety, you could start to argue maybe in the 3rd round, that's a good round to use for that. And then maybe in the 4th round, 5th round, middle linebacker, maybe 7th round, 6th round, 7th round, running back. Yeah, I'm not against drafting to improve the running game because it does matter on the margins. And it does help you in certain game situations. But guess who else helps you in certain game situations? Kickers, right? In fringe game situations, the quality of your kicker matters. But you don't draft a kicker like San Francisco in day 2.
Right.
Okay? That's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just you've been indoctrinated by NFL broadcasters for so many years that the way to win in the league is to run the ball and stop the run. And that's just wrong. That's just incorrect. It is brainwashing and propaganda by big running game, right? The big running game propaganda has infiltrated your mind. Like, you are infected, Alan. It is a virus, and you need to go get treatment for it. And many NFL teams are still infected. The best ones are getting this edge on the rest, and they're just churning top 10 picks. The rest of them just churning top 10. And then the other guys that understand, they're always drafting at pick 26 through 32. And until the teams that are picking 1 through 10 figure it out and to knock it off. And that's why it was so demoralizing to see what the Lions did. To think that you had a team that was truly enlightened turn out to not be, or that the guy that was enlightened, Brad Holmes, lost a political struggle to Dan Campbell, and that they're winding the clock back just when the team was on the threshold of becoming like a great power in the league, that they would immediately just turn the clock back. It was actually devastating for me to watch those picks come in. Just like if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan and you have all these other needs and all these ways you could bolster the side of the ball that actually matters and drives wins and losses, which is the passing game, to see your team invest in a running back is so deflating. It doesn't matter if he goes to the Hall of Fame. It doesn't matter because a good, not great tackle would be better than a Hall of Fame running back.
I mean, Matt, it's the same franchise that took Kyle Pitts and then took Drake London, and now does the trifecta with 3 big skill position players. They passed up quarterbacks to take Kyle Pitts, and they don't even utilize him. So it should not surprise us.
By the way, this idea that Desmond Ridder is going to be the starter by the end of the year, maybe, but Desmond Ridder has very little arm strength. He is a total baseline talent as a thrower of footballs. I like his mobility. His mobility's real. Sam Howell's mobility's fake. That was my only point. I'm not saying drafts. I don't have any Desmond Ridder. You know the guys I have? You want to know the guys I have stashed in my Superflex and 2QB leagues? You know their names? Their names are Jacoby Brissett and Tyler Heineke. Those are the guys I have because I have zero faith from all these quarterbacks from last year's draft class, with the exception of Kenny Pickett, because he was the only one drafted in the first round.
All right, let's move on to the next topic, guys. Theo, Antonio
Running backs.
Gibson.
Do you understand that you're actually worse off by bringing in a running back like Bijan Robinson? Do you know how damaging it is to the franchise? Because not only was there opportunity cost, right, where you could have had a great tackle, not just a good, you could have had a truly impactful edge rusher or tackle, and they blew it. Number one. Number two, now you give political cover to whatever coach and all their worst desires. What you are doing is enabling the worst desires and tendencies of head coaches and offensive coordinators, saying, hey, here's an elite running back. You should run the ball more. So congratulations. You got a Hall of Fame running back and you just made your team worse.
All right, enough said there. I was going to tag onto that, but I have a question for Theo, because I was going to say the same, Theo, the same people.
So can you admit you're wrong, Alan? Admit that you're devastatingly wrong, and that you came into this conversation with a particular worldview, that it was flat, and that I've shown you pictures from outer space, and you're like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Can you just say you were wrong?
Theo, blink once if you understood my point that Matt is not addressing. Just blink.
I understand your point, Alan. I understand. I understand the argument here. Matt was shaken up by Brad Holmes on day 2 of the NFL draft, and it's just continued.
See that's actually fair, because what this is really me lashing out about the Jahmyr Gibbs pick more than the Bijan pick. The Jahmyr Gibbs pick hurt my soul, whereas the Bijan pick was chalky and just so predictable, backward NFL draft pick that I just kind of motored right by it. The Bijan pick hurt my soul.
Matt expected more out of Detroit, and nothing Atlanta did would surprise you.
Harry Snowman in the chat making an incredible point. By the way, it's also a terrible use of first-round capital, because it's going to set you up to have to overpay this guy or not pick up his fifth-year option. It's an awful choice. It's the same awful choice that the Giants had to face with Saquon. They're setting themselves up to make that, be in that prisoner's dilemma in 4 years. Thank you, Harry.
All you do is you fifth-year option, you franchise tag, and then you move on to the next guy. But hey, we have an aggressive show sheet. We have some really good dynasty topics here. Theo, in the beginning,
can you just stop saying silly stuff, and we won't have to get bogged down?
This is the old Darnold versus Saquon Barkley debate, right? From 2018, Theo, right? And it ends up that Barkley, even though he's not a Hall of Famer, was still probably the better pick than Sam Darnold. I think we could all agree on that. Let's move on, fellas.
I'd rather have Sam Darnold.
No, you wouldn't, Matt. No, you would rather have Saquon Barkley than Sam Darnold.
I think it's close.
It's not close. Not anymore. The 3 is flipped over. We have 21. We doubled down. The result is in. There's no more process.
Here's the other way I disagree with Alan here, though. Alan says that it's already known, it's already a sure thing that Bijan's a Hall of Famer.
In his example. In Anand's example, he said that even if that Bijan's a Hall of Famer. Now, I agree. If we don't know that, which we don't, it's a bad pick. But in his example, Bijan's a Hall of Famer. We have the answer in his fictitious example.
Right, but in your example, in your hypothetical, the other option is Sam Darnold.
Well, Darnold versus Barkley. The process bros, Theo, right? They wanted Darnold because you always take a quarterback there. But now that we know the answer, Barkley was the better pick. We already have the
First of all, the fact that you are diminishing the idea that quarterback over running back is the obvious move, that you would call people that think that process bros, is part of the propaganda. This is part of big running game propaganda. Then they label people that actually just have the facts, bros. This is what you do. This is what you do.
It's
when you're carrying water for big running game, and it's shameful.
I have an important question. Dynasty, back to Dynasty. When we started in February, the Dynasty startup season, the rookie draft prep, Antonio Gibson, Theo, was left for dead. Washington, the only thing they do is draft Chris Rodriguez in the 6th round, something like that.
Thank you, Seth Diewold in the chat. It was not about Darnold. It was about the highest upside quarterback on the board when Barkley was available was actually not Darnold at all. Darnold was a reach at 2 overall.
No.
Darnold did not even have a high QBR. If you were looking at the right metrics in college, Darnold was not an impressive prospect. Neither was Rosen. And frankly, I wouldn't have drafted Josh Allen there either because Josh Allen was an inefficient quarterback. But if all your choices are inefficient QBs, the least thing you can do is say, okay, I'm gonna draft the big, strong, gunslinger, and hope that he can develop. So when all your other choices are bad, so that the choice in hindsight was Barkley versus Allen. One changes your franchise. The other one doesn't move the needle, even if he goes to the Hall of Fame. That is the point, Allen. That is the point.
I'm not even going to counterpoint, Theo, because I want to ask you about Antonio Gibson.
Of course you're not going to counterpoint. Of course you're going to pivot and move on because you're big. You represent big running game.
Nobody was talking about Josh Allen as the number 2 overall pick.
The
Obviously,
running industrial complex is paying your salary behind the scenes through holding companies. I'm convinced.
The argument would have been trading back for Allen. I think if Seth could have added that, I think Allen would have liked that comment more. Correct, Allen?
Yes.
I got you, Allen. I got you.
Because nobody at the time, the debate was Darnold versus Barkley. Gettleman's an idiot because he didn't take Darnold. That was the only argument people were having. People were saying Josh Allen. Nobody was debating Josh Allen as the number 2 overall pick. That wasn't even maybe you were talking about Bradley Chubb at the time. If you would have taken him, he was in the discussion. But really, it came down to people calling Gettleman an idiot because he took Saquon over Sam Darnold. That was the biggest part of the argument, Theo. And now we know the answer. Yeah. And now we know the answer. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, we know the answer. Gettleman's an idiot.
Well, he took Danny Dimes when Dwayne Haskins was the consensus pick. He reached up for him. That was the right pick. He traded Odell Beckham. He traded Odell Beckham.
Whoa,
right?
This is Dave Gettleman apology tour now?
This is a Dave Gettleman show, apparently.
Yeah. All right. Come on, guys. Let's move on. We got an aggressive show agenda. By the way, great topic. We could certainly readdress this because, but it's put to bed for now. Antonio Gibson. It's
easier to put to bed if you just say I was wrong. I'm wrong.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm disagreeing with how Anand phrased his tweet. He gave us the final answer, and then once the blackjack cards are flipped over, there's no more process. We know the answer. That's it. The answer was bad process to hit on 18 when dealer's showing a 7. But when you flip over and there's a 3 and you have 21, you got it right. Bad process, right answer. Process is more about probabilities. That once you have the answers to the test, the probability is 0 or 100. There's an answer and there's a wrong answer, right and a wrong answer.
It's results over process with Allen, like the Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams rookie draft pick from years back, Matt.
Genius pick. Genius pick. Trevor Lawrence is going to outscore Javonte again this year for the 3rd time in a row. All right, Theo, Antonio Gibson, man. Him and Brian Robinson, those ADPs are flopping in Dynasty. I mean, no one was excited about drafting Brian Robinson in Dynasty, but when you're in the 10th round of these drafts and you need a running back, sure, why not? Antonio Gibson was left for dead. All of a sudden, I'm watching this Dynasty ADP like it's a stock market, like it's Bitcoin in its peak, and they flopped. What is the Dynasty market undervaluing Gibson? Where should we be drafting him? Should we be trading for him before there's Twitter highlights of the new OC and how he's going to use him?
Well, Matt and I actually have discussed Antonio Gibson recently about how he's a strong Dynasty buy this offseason. The guy's averaged 14 points per game twice. Twice he's had double-digit touchdown seasons. and we have no more J.D. McKissick in Washington. So he's their only pass-catching running back on the roster, and he's one that's had previous fantasy success. We also have a chance of him gaining dynasty value a year from now when he leaves for another team, potentially a better situation. And I will say that I don't think we should be so quick to discount the threat of Chris Rodriguez to Brian Robinson, because that was an Eric Bieniemy guy. Eric Bieniemy, he wanted Chris Rodriguez, and the Washington organization likes Chris Rodriguez, and they said they've made a point of saying that they had a day 2 grade on Rodriguez. The one thing Rodriguez, if you simply just go through his stats at Kentucky, he has no history of catching the ball. That's not part of his game. But Washington said that they view him as a 3-down back potentially, but at the end of the day, Antonio Gibson, he's kind of like on his own little island as a dynamic running back with athleticism and pass catching ability, where Rodriguez can be the big threat to Robinson, and Antonio Gibson, I think, is going to have a weekly floor where he's reliable. So I think that, Alan, the ADPs of Robinson and Gibson are converging in Dynasty. It should have been Antonio Gibson ahead of him all along. Matt and I have talked about how ridiculous it is. We're in a startup draft now with you as well, Alan, where Robinson, where he went. It's just, Robinson's a floor play, and Gibson is a guy with a ceiling.
That you would ever have had Brian Robinson ahead of Antonio Gibson in Dynasty is embarrassing. So if anyone ranks players and they ever had Robinson over Gibson, given their ages are similar, their skill sets are anything but similar, Antonio Gibson is just a complete dominant and highly skilled player compared to Brian Robinson. Shame. Shame
Alan,
on you. Shame on you, and you should apologize. You should have to apologize to every... No, they should. If you have subscribers, and you have Brian Robinson over Antonio Gibson, you should have to write an apology and post it on your website. You should issue the apology on your podcast. And if anyone follows anybody who was touting Robinson over Gibson at any point, you should demand an apology. Shameful.
Alan actually made a trade. I traded Brian Robinson, Devin Singletary. The manager also has Dameon Pierce. So I traded him Robinson, Singletary, and a 2024 third. And I got back Keenan Allen.
Oh, jeez.
And I got back Tyler Algier to back up future Hall of Famer Bijan Robinson.
Stop it.
So I just wanted to flex that one, Alan.
Why you're just, you know what, you're selling manure to farmers. That's what you're setting up a manure stand. Does everyone want to buy waste? Right? You're just selling waste to fertilize soil. That's what you're doing. It's great. I mean, congratulations, Theo. That's a peach of a trade. That's maybe the greatest trade I've heard all year.
Guys, I just checked. I just typed in Dynasty rankings just to see what came up first. Of course, Fantasy Pros, they came up first. They actually have Brian Robinson 3 spots in the running back rankings ahead of Antonio Gibson. Now, again, Fantasy Pros is like it's a mixture of a lot of different rankers. So
but it's an aggregation.
Yeah.
An amalgam of all these rankers. So
that's my point.
Essentially what we're saying is about 55% of Dynasty rankers in the industry should be ashamed of themselves.
I think it's more than that, Podfather. I think right now they have Brian Robinson, RB35, Gibson 38. And really what that means is, again, this is not picking on Fantasy Pros, because you said they're just the blender where all the... Yeah,
okay, then 65%, whatever.
Yeah,
that's 65% of Dynasty analysts should issue apologies starting today.
And retractions. They need to retract.
It's retractions, everything. Like, just, what? There's no basis. There's not a singular basis. Like, sometimes I hear, the draft capital, Gibson was drafted earlier. There's literally no age. Dude, they're the same age. There's nothing. There's nothing. Nothing. You know what it is, though? You know what it is? It comes down to, this is what it comes down to. I'm telling you. If you really want to trace the roots of these things to where the biases start, Alabama helmet. Alabama helmet. You show me an Alabama helmet, Clemson helmet, You show me an Ohio State helmet, soon enough Georgia helmet. You show me these helmets, you're gonna see biases all over the place.
Yeah. Theo, everybody's looking for running backs for cheap because, in these dynasty startups, you got to elbow people out of the way to get wide receivers. So right now, Arizona didn't draft a running back. They're sitting there with James Conner. Now, the team's going to be bad, but if you're going to tell me James Conner is going to be locked in for 250 touches and I can get him in the 12th round of Superflex leagues, is this a player that it's fool's gold? Or is this someone, if you're a wide receiver drafter, that in Dynasty, it's not a bad one-year bet?
I think that's actually a tremendous take, Alan. That James Conner is getting beat up because of the offensive situation, but the volume is completely there. This is a guy that they leaned on to end the season last year. And if you simply just look at James Conner's fantasy points per game over like the last 5 years, it's absurd what the guy's done. He's continually putting up fantasy points. He's also the best receiving back that they have on the roster. Keontae Ingram is his main threat for touches back there. So it's like, I think Conner, it's like the dynasty, the every marketplace is really beating up Conner, but especially the dynasty marketplace, just based on the offensive team situation. But if he simply just
that is a reason though.
But it's not this much of a correction, Matt. Like James
I know it's not.
Free.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I've never said this. James Conner's a value. I haven't said this since he was coming back from cancer. Right. That's how long ago where I was like, this. I'm all in on James. When James Conner was coming out of Pitt, I was like, this guy's the Terminator. Love this guy. Now we've come full circle, right? And it's like, okay, now he's a value again.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically buying it. It's potentially a short-term purchase, Alan. You got to understand what you're doing in Dynasty. But if you have a contender, you can get James Conner for a cheaper than he should be. Like people. You have to look at your league. If you have managers that can't really support an older running back on their roster and they're looking to get younger through draft picks, you can send a very low ball offer and get James Conner in a lot of leagues. I've seen it going on, and especially
Theo,
in the startups too, Alan.
Well, if you're in a rookie draft, Theo, and couldn't you just get Jalen Hyatt up for someone like that, or any of these? I'm just saying, like, you can get James.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
And it's a great call, Alan. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, how about Ingram, guys? Keontae Ingram. Where are we going to be on him as far as, because if nobody wants James Conner, really nobody wants Keontae Ingram. He's just sitting out there in a lot of these, the deep waters of dynasty startup drafts. Connors has an injury history. Is this a player that we should be interested in?
I think that Keontae Ingram, and I'm going to throw out a player that Matt and I were discussing yesterday, Jerome Ford. These two guys are like the year two handcuffs that the market is not really caring about. Both of the running backs they're backing up are past the age apex in Nick Chubb and James Conner, and they have clear handcuff roles right in front of them. Now, there's obviously a chance with these sort of guys that someone could pass them by in camp, that a veteran could be signed late if the team doesn't have a lot of faith in them, or potentially there's another cut, or potentially like a team like Cleveland who views themselves as a contender might say, you know what, we're going to bring in somebody else to compete with Jerome Ford. But at this moment in time, Keontae Ingram and Jerome Ford are both younger running backs with a little bit of juice, and a situation where if the person in front of them goes down, they are in for a nice weekly volume play. And Keontae Ingram, it was a smaller sample size last year, but he looked good when he had the opportunity. There was the primetime game. It escapes me who they played, but Keontae Ingram had a touchdown, and he had a touchdown called back. And that was the Eno Benjamin game. If we all remember, like Eno had his big smash game. So it was like Arizona was down running backs. Keontae got an opportunity, looked pretty good. This is a Texas running back, also played at USC. So like the lineage is there. And then Jerome Ford was, like Matt said, an Alabama running back. So we have a deference for Alabama running backs, and Jerome Ford goes and plays with Desmond Ridder, looks great at Cincinnati as a transfer. So those two guys, Alan, I feel like the dynasty marketplace is just not high enough on. We're not saying to go and reach for them, but these are like direct backups right now that the market is not viewing like that.
Just for the record, on our dynasty rankings on PlayerProfiler.com, Okay. We have James Conner 50 spots ahead of PPR. 50 spots ahead of Jalen Hyatt. That's the type of place that we are, where if you want to win in Dynasty and you want to focus on the right details and you don't want to get swept up in rookie fever and overvalue the wrong types of profiles, then you should be subscribed to our rankings, and it gives you a great perspective helping you navigate these drafts. You'll be surprised where we have Jerome Ford, Keontae Ingram, even guys like Joshua Kelly. Like, these are pure number twos. Joshua Kelly's a pure number two on a quality offense, right? Unlike Ingram, where the upside with Ingram, the problem with Ingram is if he gets the role, congratulations, your quarterback's Jeff Driscoll. It's like, okay, what are we talking about here, right? But still, 220 pounds, all-purpose skill set. Yes, he had to transfer, but no one had a better reason to transfer than Keontae Ingram because he was behind Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson. It's very understandable. After in 2019, he caught 29 passes, right? He was their satellite back. He's a satellite back plus. He had a quality year, 10 touchdowns at Texas in 2019. And then Bijan and Roschon show up, and he's like, all right, guys, all due respect, I got to get out of here. And then he had a 19% target share at USC. So he can catch the ball better than James Conner. He's going to have some standalone value. He's going to be a breather back, and he's going to be in there in some third down situations. So I like Keontae Ingram even more than a guy like Zamir White in best ball, because Keontae Ingram's actually going to have some weeks regardless of what happens with James Conner, whereas Zamir White, he's actually better in Dynasty than best ball because we assume Josh Jacobs is going to be the workhorse as he's been for all these years, but his contract is expiring. So the guy I like the best of this class of running back has to be Zamir White. He has the size and the speed. He has the Georgia pedigree. They drafted him 4th round, so he does have some residual draft capital, and Josh Jacobs is unlikely to be a Raider next year unless they come back and they double down. But odds are they're going to find someone else, a non-running back, they want to franchise tag next year. So I think there's a high probability that Zamir White's role just grows over time. And then if you're in a productive struggle, and I'm in a startup with you two, and I circled Zamir White because
I'm dominating.
Trying to compete.
I'm dominating.
You're doing great.
Come on, Alan.
Alan's doing great. I circled 2024 because I went Kyler in the 2nd round. That meant by default I was punting this season into next season. And so then the moment you push the button on Kyler Murray in the Superflex draft, you then have to bend your entire will toward and start thinking about 2024 and whose situation is going to get better a year from now. And no one has a better case for that at running back than Zamir White. Now, I just went on the clock. In this draft, I'm holding my phone. You can see I'm holding my phone, and I just felt it vibrate because as I was speaking, I entered the clock. I'm in the clock. I'm on the clock, and I'm going to draft a player in round 20. This is, by the way, the pick that Rhino traded me in the now infamous trade where I traded back, and I could have drafted a 2nd round wide receiver like Alec Pierce, for example, right? But instead, I decided to trade back with Rhino, and he took Roschon Johnson. And as it turns out, there is another underperforming 2nd round wide receiver who's actually in a better situation than Alec Pierce, and he's significantly faster than Alec Pierce. I think he's the guy that people want Alec Pierce to be, and that's Tyquan Thornton. Did you guys know that Tyquan Thornton has a 100th percentile 40 time? He actually ran a 4.28. That's Tyreek Hill level speed. There's very little target competition left in New England. He was a 2nd round pick drafted before George Pickens, before Sky Moore, and yet he's still available for some unknown reason. Why is it that there's some players every year that everybody just walks away from, they become radioactive, and you go back and you say, okay, this guy was injured, he was on the IR for a period of time, it was a catastrophic passing game run by Matt Patricia, right? Like, so he was set up to fail as a rookie, and he was a rookie, so you also have to forgive him for being a rookie. And one of the things that we know is predictive for wide receivers is just straight 40 time. And the faster, the better. Where, yes, running a 4.4 is good, but if you can get down there around the 4.3s, then you will be on an NFL football team for a long period of time, for nothing else other than like a gunner on special teams, kick returner. So you will have a role on a team. But if you're a second-round pick and you have that kind of speed, then the team's going to be incentivized to find ways to use you and at least put you in there, and you're going to have boom weeks as a rotational wide receiver and a deep threat. And in this particular league, let's just count it up right now. We'll count it up. How many wide receiver spots there are? You start 3 receivers, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pure flex spots, not including the super flex spot. So this is a very deep league. I am going to be starting this particular player, though I drafted him in round 20. And this is exactly what I said when the trade happened. I said, I'm going to get a guy in round 20 that I'm actually going to be able to use, and it's not going to be that much different than whoever's being drafted in the round where I allowed the trade up to happen, and I gave up my pick, and now I've got 2 second-rounders, plus I've got Tyquan Thornton, the guy that runs the 4.28. Thank you very much, Rhino.
He's super interesting, Matt, because you bring up the speed, and you also bring up we talked about, like, he had that one monster game. It was week 6, and he was like wide receiver 8 on the week, top 10 week, and then he ended the year, he had a top 20 week. And we've oftentimes seen Bill Belichick kind of slow play rookies, and then in year 2 they get a lot more run. Ramondre Stevenson was a prime example last year. I know I saw Pierre Strong's name mentioned in the chat. Like, I think Tyquan Thornton.
Pierre Strong is the Tyquan Thornton of the Patriots at running back.
Yeah, both those guys are very interesting because they need at least one of those 2 guys to be like a weekly touch guy. And Tyquan Thornton is very different than their other wide receivers. There's been a little buzz about Keyshawn Boutte. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster, they brought in as a free agent. Devontae Parker's getting a little bit older. And then they bring in Gesicki. But they could really use Tyquan Thornton's speed, and I think he could be on the field a lot more than some people are giving him credit to. I like your point that these second-year wide receivers drafted in the second round that are kind of forgotten are guys you want to take shots on. I thought that was a very strong take as well.
Yeah. We're seeing in these dynasty leagues, the 3 of us are in that expensive chair one. 250 is not peanuts, right? So people are actually giving their real takes when they make their picks. And the wide receivers seem to go really early in these drafts. You're always looking for running back help a little bit later. And I don't mean like 20th round. I mean, if you're going to spend your first few picks on a wide receiver, there's still some 24-year-old running backs that are available in like round 3 through 5 and, even single quarterback leagues. So, I mean, look what the Rams did, right? And this is why I'm interested. Is Cam Akers, I mean, everyone loved him and everyone hated him coming off the Achilles, but it seems like that the way he finished the season, guys, that they only drafted Zach Evans in the 6th round. Nobody thought Kyron Williams is that good.
Tyyon Evans is better than Zach Evans.
Okay, fine, but that's still an undrafted guy? Or, I mean, basically, really what I'm asking you guys is, Theo, just Cam Akers, man, this is he's probably going 2 rounds too cheap. Is this a perfect dead zone guy for this year?
He's very interesting, and I know, Alan, you don't want me to talk about redraft, so I'll take it to best ball. In an underdog, he's running back 24. So I think that he's kind of being drafted like towards his floor. And Matt brings up Tion Evans. There's Zach Evans. There's Kyron Williams. There's a bunch of guys with no draft capital surrounded by Cam Akers. Cam Akers finished the year very strongly. This is a guy that we thought was going to be traded. We thought there was potential that he would get cut. Cam Akers is a guy who overcame a huge injury, overcame being traded, overcame being cut. He's sort of a survivor at this point. And this is like the year that's kind of falling into place for him in terms of.
Oh my God, is he like James Conner without the cancer?
He's, you know who he's like? I don't want to hype it, but his situation last year, we saw 2 fourth-year running backs be extremely devalued in both Dynasty and in redraft, in Josh Jacobs and in Miles Sanders, 2 guys that got kind of pushed down to this range that we're seeing Cam Akers get drafted in. Sanders was a little bit behind, but this is pretty much exactly where Josh Jacobs was going last offseason. And I think Cam Akers, it's kind of a perfect storm where the volume is lining up for him. They didn't add the receiving weapons that are going to, besides Cooper Kupp, that you could see like Cam Akers having an outsized receiving role that he's had in the past. And it's basically like Cam Akers or nothing. Unless we're going to make some bullish argument for Zach Evans or Tion Evans or Kyron Williams, seeing a big leap from what we were expecting from them, then Cam Akers is absolutely a value, Alan. I think that he's a value in pretty much every single format right now. And he's super interesting. I think he's interesting right now.
Alan, you were on the clock in this draft.
I know. You want me to make the pick now?
Well, because if you make the pick, then I can make my next pick.
All
Let's do it, guys. This is
live draft, man. Let's do
awesome.
this. We're drafting.
All of a sudden, the guy who spent the most time on the clock, you and Rhino spend the most time on the clock. Now, all of a sudden, you're like you're verbally OTCing me right on the live stream.
Yes, OTC, Alan, OTC.
Yeah, whenever they OTC, I hashtag FUCK. That's what I write back. In this draft, now that we're in the, like I said, the super deep part of it, you're just looking.
Malik Willis is available, Alan.
Take him, Alan.
Okay. I was thinking about
the slide.
I was thinking about Mostert. I was thinking about Zeke, and obviously I was thinking about Thornton. So, once
all those guys are off the board now. What about Leonard Fournette? Leonard Fournette's available to you.
Lenny and Kareem Hunt are the 2 interesting ones because they're going to end up someplace either where they kill someone else's fantasy value and they're going to have weeks, right? I mean, we thought of these guys as players that we were happy to take in past years. Now it's just funny. We're hoping to get 1 to 2 useful weeks out of them. And if this draft happens after June 1st, when a lot of these guys presumptually will sign, we'll know a lot more. One of them might end up on Arizona if they can't get a deal, right? So they might be worth taking a shot, and I'll make my pick. I'll make it shortly, but I just wanted to continue.
But you're not going to make the pick?
You want to make it right now?
Yeah.
Like,
you don't have your queue ready? You haven't thought this through? It's $250 league. I would have thought you knew exactly what you have iterated over. Contingency planning of if player X gets drafted, you're drafting player Y.
Yeah,
Don't you know who you're drafting, Alan? Or are you freezing up? Are you getting nervous?
I'm getting nervous.
There's a lot of money on the line,
and with the flat payment, there's only a winner take all payment in this. Which again, I usually like a little bit flatter. Sorry, meaning like I like to get paid for 3rd and 4th place, but I understand. So you want to definitely take a few more win now pieces, where they're actually going to help you this year because there's no glory in 3rd place in this league, right, Theo?
None. This is you want to get to the top for that money, Alan.
Yeah, that upset me.
Give Alan some guidance, Theo. Who would you be considering?
Well, I already have. Okay, I'm curious. Good.
I'm gonna pull it open right now, guys. Dan and I keep Dan Williamson. Shout out to Dan Williamson, the overhyped sleeper. We keep a very deep queue always, Alan. That's one thing you want to load up your queue in a draft this deep.
Let's see. I'll tell you how many guys I have in my queue right now. They're just not ordered. 71 in my queue.
Okay, that's sicko stuff. That's sicko stuff. 71's too many guys.
Wait. Many guys, 71 people in this queue?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Well, because we're going 40 rounds in this draft, right? I mean,
that might be. I will say this, guys. Alan has not been without controversy and bold statements on this podcast. The lunch lady. I mean, you got a good history here, Alan, of shocking moments. But 71 guys in your queue is the most shocking thing that you've ever said on the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast.
Jesus Christ!
I thought that was chalk. I thought the lunch lady was chalk. I thought the stripper, paying her to defecate on the bar was chalk. I mean, I didn't know
the unbalanced body hair that we found out about recently.
Okay,
which by the way is a great look.
Guy explained there's a dichotomy here that we should talk about. That there was this huge run on running backs, right? I sadly did not get Zamir White. I wanted Zamir White. I wanted Jerome Ford. I wanted Keontae Ingram. None of those guys were available. I ended up with Chuba Hubbard, who I also like. Chuba Hubbard had 2,000-yard season at Oklahoma State. And the question with Chuba Hubbard coming out was, what kind of receiver is he? And then we found out last year, he's an efficient receiver out of the backfield. Certainly much better than Dante Foreman, but he's a real weapon. So he's been developing as a receiver, and we know he's a quality runner. He's an all-purpose back. I think he's very close to Miles Sanders in terms of raw skill sets. I don't think it's that different. When you look at their ADPs, it's not reflective of their skill sets. It's just that Miles Sanders has the contract. You get the initial draft capital, the second-round pick by the Eagles. Now he has like the 4-year deal that he signed, which no one's signing running backs to 4-year deals. So I understand the confidence of the 4-year deal, but I also haven't seen Miles Sanders catch passes out of the backfield since his rookie year. So
made the pick.
It's very possible that Chuba Hubbard has standalone value this year, but also is a top handcuff, and then he goes somewhere else next year and potentially be a starter. Allen has picked Gus Edwards.
I have Dobbins, though.
Gus Edwards, running back for Baltimore in a very deep league where we're really not going to be accessing the waiver wire much at all. That's when handcuffing actually makes sense. Because it's not like there's a big trade-off with any of these bench spots anyway. The opportunity cost is very low. You might as well handcuff your players. So I understand that. I just think that the better choice would have been to put your chips on one of these Jets running backs, because right now Michael Carter and Zonovan Knight are available. Yeah. Theo Gremminger lives in Long Island. He follows the Jets. Are you a Jets fan officially, Theo, or not?
No, I am not a Jets fan. I go to a Jets game occasionally. I kind of like seeing the Jets, but I don't bleed.
But you have a lot of Jets fans around that live around you.
I do, and I enjoy seeing my friends and neighbors happy. And the Jets, there's a lot of fans of them in my neighborhood.
They haven't done shit yet. The season hasn't started yet. Jets fans, slow down.
It's a big win already for them, Matt.
They are setting themselves up for disappointment with Aaron Rodgers.
It's about the optimism.
Aaron Rodgers is a setup for failure. So if it were you and you're me and we're on the clock, Michael Carter versus Zonovan Knight is interesting, because Michael Carter is out there catching 40 passes a year. He was an early 4th-round pick. He's a quality player, like an elite agility scorer. Like, he looks the part of a quality satellite back in the league, and he should be productive for the next few years, even though he's behind Breece Hall. That's the issue for another 2 years. Same with Zonovan Knight. But last year, even when Michael Carter was active, Zonovan Knight was the one getting the carries. So what does that mean to you?
I think that the number 2 job for Jets running back right now is a real one you want to take shots on, but I think that there's a lack of clarity there that you didn't have to worry about with Chuba Hubbard. So for me, it's like the Israel Abanikanda addition with Zonovan Knight playing very well to end the year, plus Michael Carter. It's a little bit of a mess behind Breece Hall right now.
Totally.
It's not like I like all 3 guys, but I think that there's a lack of clarity there, and it makes it difficult to kind of take shots on.
It's why I hate drafting Israel Abanikanda. Hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it. Whenever I click the button, and I've clicked it in a couple rookie drafts, I immediately hated myself. Hated it.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't mind committees.
Let him answer, Alan.
Well, before he does, I'm saying
he hasn't given an answer yet. He tried to do that thing where he puts it out there like, well, it is a very difficult decision. Back to you.
No, so for me, if I had a choice of all 3 of the Jets running backs, I'm going to take Israel Abanikanda, because I think Israel Abanikanda has the most natural ability.
Yes,
we've said that he compares to a Tevin Coleman,
correct? Who's
a guy that's had success with Robert Saleh, and a guy that Robert Saleh continually brought in, Tevin Coleman. So this could be his new Tevin Coleman. And I just like the Israel Abanikanda story. The guy's from Brooklyn. He's now a Jet. He fells in the draft, but could win the direct backup.
Drafted,
round.
Theo. He was long gone.
So then I'm not trying to take shots on 3 and the 3-4, but it's Michael Carter over Zonovan Knight for me because of the pass catching ability. That would be the tiebreaker.
Okay, that's the answer. Okay, now the question I have for you is, What about in tight end super premium, Jake Ferguson?
Now we're talking here, Matt, because Jake Ferguson, there's a little
very
buzz
interesting.
coming
Now
out.
remember, I drafted 3 tight ends early, and I did that so I wouldn't have to, play footsie with fucking Jake Ferguson. Okay, that's the whole reason I did this. The whole reason I went Goddard, Mayer, Dulcich was so I wouldn't have to play footsie. So the other dichotomy I have right now, choice in front of me, is if I want to go tight end, it's going to be Jake Ferguson on the one hand, or go higher upside and also handcuff with Albert Akuigbunam.
I think that Jake Ferguson is super interesting because there was some buzz on him, and then Dallas takes Luke Schoonmaker in the end of the second round, and it kind of like brings Jake Ferguson down to a point. We've seen you bring up like the Dalton Schultz being a kind of a crutch for Dak over the previous seasons, and I think he's got a deference for the tight end position. It's a difficult position to step on the field right away and contribute. And Ferguson now has a year of experience in Dallas. So for me, like Ferguson would be the one I would want to bet on, over a Schoonmaker, despite the draft capital, because I don't really believe too much in Schoonmaker. I think Schoonmaker is a very athletic player. I think he's versatile. I think they could use him as an H-back and do different things with him. But Ferguson is the one where if one of the two has like 7 touchdown catches this year, it's Ferguson.
And also Ferguson, he comps pretty close to Dalton Schultz. You know that, right? Like he and Dalton Schultz are pretty similar players. He's just actually a little bit bigger.
Yeah, Ferguson is a decent athlete. This was a 4th round pick. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Matt.
Fourth round pick. They were drafted at almost the exact same draft slot. They have the exact same shape of their workout metrics, where Ferguson is just slightly less athletic, but he's also 6 pounds heavier. So it's very similar to Dalton Schultz. I think we've just made the decision, guys. I think I'm going Jake Ferguson. I'm going Jake Ferguson here. I'm going bully tight end. I'm getting my 4th tight end. And then the game is going to be, will Zonovan Knight or Albert Akuigbunam make it all the way back to me?
Yeah, something I couldn't draft Michael Carter either. I was thinking about it, and I was just like, yeah, am I really going to feel good starting him? The answer, I came to the same conclusion you did there as well, guys.
The pick is in. The pick is in. It is Jake Ferguson. Sorry, Theo. Did you have your eye on him?
He might have been in our queue,
but
I will say.
Don't tell Dan. Dan, if you're listening, do not blame Theo for this. This was good content. He had to tell the truth. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners. They need to know what to do in these situations. He's loyal to them over his fantasy teams, and that's why we love him. So please don't blame him for what just happened. But I did snipe you, though.
Albert O is still going to be available to you next pick, Matt. I think I will guess on that one. I think Albert O will be there.
You think so?
And I think Zonovan Knight. I think there's a chance both will, and I know one will.
I'm pretty sure Zonovan Knight will be.
Yeah.
Yep. Guys, in these Superflex drafts that everyone seems to be, Superflex is like one of the most growing forms of fantasy football. I mean, sometimes we get involved, like we're in our little bubble. We think everybody plays, but Theo could attest to a lot of the FFPC guys still play single quarterback, but it's something of interest. And what happens is sometimes these bad quarterbacks, like we talked about earlier with Sam Howell, they actually do hold value more so than where they are traded. They're cheaper in the startup draft than they are when you actually when you put them on the open
Alan,
market.
I got to interrupt you. Can I just talk about the chat?
Yeah.
Can I explain what they're doing? They're like, if the Jets liked Carter and Zonovan Knight, they wouldn't have drafted Abanikanda. Schoonmaker was a converted wide receiver, right? Jake Ferguson was not impressive last year. Hey, guys, it's the 20th round. There's a reason these guys are available. Thank you for your criticism, but it's not like we have great choices. Shut up. We are trying to make the best pick of what's available. And at this point, great players with, clear paths to touches are not available. It's the 20th round. So back off.
Guys, it's going to be a lot of fun next week when we're in like the 35th round.
Jesus
and we're
Christ.
talking about our...
What
You're
is
optimistic.
wrong with you people? You
I
don't
think
think
it's
we
either 28th
know that
round.
Michael Carter's an underwhelming draft pick in Dynasty? No shit. You think I was happy to run up with the card and put in Ferguson? No, but I did it because I guarantee you everyone in this audience is worse at Dynasty than Theo Gremminger. Shut up.
All right. I do all right. I do all right, guys.
Nice. All right, guys, let's continue on with our list of players that now that we've digested what the teams have done in the draft, is there some hidden value? And I know nobody wants Baker Mayfield, but he did do all right the last 4 weeks when he was with the Rams. He held you above water if you lost Jalen Hurts in a Superflex league. Right now, he's the starting quarterback. I think in Superflex Dynasty, he's like not even being drafted in the top 32. I see Hendon Hooker go above him in some of these drafts, guys. Baker Mayfield, 28 years old. Bruce Arians and all the brass over there, they believe in him. He's got great wide receivers.
They
I don't care
believe
what,
in him? How do you know what they believe, Alan?
They could have drafted
friends with these people. Have you had these people in an honest moment? Have you been drinking at a bar with these guys? No,
hung up.
That's what they told the media because that's all they have. So of course they believe in him.
All right, let me rephrase.
You were the guy that was buying this whole, Zach Evans only transferred because he wanted to follow his coach. He's gullible. Gullible.
All right, let me rephrase for those who
they like him a lot.
They like him enough where he's going to be the most likely person to be starting the most games in Tampa. We love the receiving core as far as real football. Mike Evans is still, no matter what you think of him, he's being drafted as a top 30 wide receiver in all formats. 35 wide receiver.
Is Bruce Arians even still the coach?
But he's in the front office, isn't he?
I guess.
He's part of the decision making,
Probably.
It's Todd Bowles, but Todd Bowles is a Bruce Arians
defensive.
guy. It's the Bruce Arians philosophy, people in the chat.
Okay.
This is the Dick Cheney controlling the George Bush type of thing.
You're just parroting the talking points of big running game. That's what you do.
Can we get to
That's
the
what
points?
you do. You're a mouthpiece, Alan. You're a mouthpiece for big running game, and this is what a classic tell that media personality is actually just a mouthpiece for some industrial complex. Is that you just spout the talking points from the team or the organization as if it's fact. You should be ashamed of yourself, Alan.
Oh boy. By the way, Bruce Arians, he's a consultant, which basically means he's still calling the shots, or at least having
consultant
input.
Now. They've stripped him of all title. He's now just consultant.
Well, maybe that's what he wants. It's stressful being a coach.
But you know him very well, and you've had him on Truth Serum.
Bottom line here. All right, let me rephrase for those for the point. You're in the deep end of your Superflex drafts. People are taking players like Tyler Algier. They're taking players that you couldn't get a third-round pick for, and Baker Mayfield is sitting out there. It happened in our draft, our startup that we're doing, the $250 chair, right? There was other players I wanted. There's other depth pieces I needed, but Baker Mayfield is going to be the most likely guy to start the most number of games, 28 years old, had a decent end of last month of the season for the Rams, has good weapons with Mike Evans and, Rachaad White and Chris Godwin. Is this a player now? Because they didn't even draft one of these fourth-round QBs, guys, that, again, we talked about Aiden O'Connell or any of the Stetson Bennett, any of these players that went late in day 2, day 3 of the draft. So is Baker Mayfield kind of like a little bit of a sneaky Superflex Dynasty asset, Theo?
I've taken him this offseason begrudgingly, kind of for the reason, Alan, that he's super cheap, and I think he will start the season, which is trade equity. And also gives me depth. I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for him, but we do really like the weapons. Like the fact that he's got Rachaad White coming out of the backfield, he's got Chris Godwin, he's got Mike Evans. That's exciting. And he did have his moments. Like we all thought that when he went to LA, it was just going to be complete disaster. And to his credit, he played better than I expected. So I don't know. I don't want to get excited about Baker Mayfield.
Not excited, but
it's more of a yes. I think he will be the starter this season because of the quarterback depth behind him. I don't have any faith in. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in Baker Mayfield, but I think that it's worth, like you're saying, taking him extremely cheap. So you have another starting quarterback on your roster that you could potentially trade to somebody who becomes desperate.
Here's the players that I took when I selected Baker Mayfield in this startup that we're all doing. I took him over Evan Hull, Josh Palmer, Noah Fant, Michael Gallup. These are the options.
Well, I drafted Hull. So.
Right, but what's Evan Hull going for in rookie drafts? A 3rd-round pick.
Have you seen Evan Hull's profile on PlayerProfiler.com?
I just didn't.
Shit, man, that's a sexy man right there, Evan Hull.
If Baker Mayfield has 2 good games and someone needs a quarterback, they're snap calling a 2024 second-round rookie pick for him. That's all I'm saying is I could turn that.
Evan Hull could be Aaron Jones. He was drafted in the same round, same athletic profile, same exact size, same dominant college resume. He even caught more passes at Northwestern than Aaron Jones did at Texas El Paso.
Evan Hull is a super athlete, and that's going to be an interesting camp battle. But I think that he'll beat out Deion Jackson. As much as we liked Deion Jackson last year, I think Evan Hull is going to.
We like Deion Jackson.
I like Deion Jackson had a running back 1 overall season.
These people with the we. That's another one of my. I listen. I'm not gonna. I don't. Begrudge the we, right, use as much as I begrudge what Allen's been doing, which is carrying water for big running game and big media. Like that's not that type of egregious, but that is a little peeve for me. The we business.
Shout out to everyone who started Deion Jackson during running back 1 overall week. That was an incredible one.
Yeah. Point is though, guys, that it does. If you
10 catches, right?
He went nuts that game. It was double-digit catches, and he was good on the ground. It was.
Can I predict something? Evan Hull will have more 10-catch games in his career than Deion Jackson.
He needs 2.
I think he'll have 2. I think he'll have 2. He's a great receiver.
It's very good receiver.
I went to Northwestern, in case everyone forgot. I know this kid. I also met him at the Senior Bowl. Great kid.
Good Senior Bowl week too. He had a lot. There was Evan Hull stands from that Senior Bowl.
As there should be. As long as you look past the pass protection. But here's the thing. No running back. This is what people forget. Except like Maurice Jones-Drew. Okay. No running back that's sub 210 pounds is going to look good in pass protection in those kind of drills. It's not possible. Like you're losing 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds to these guys. You're gonna get run over. It is going to happen. That was where, but that's also why Roschon Johnson's gonna get a lot of run very early in the season. You made a mistake, Allen. You made a mistake going Baker Mayfield over
Who's going to have
Hull.
more career fantasy points, Theo? Baker Mayfield or Evan Hull? Who's going to have more career fantasy points?
From this point forward?
Yeah.
I think it's close.
From this point forward, it's going to be Baker Mayfield because he's going to start multiple games this season, Allen. So that's a the quarterback.
That's a significant advantage right there.
Yeah, but that's my point. Yeah. Those are my choices, Theo. He just said I made a mistake. He said I made a mistake not taking Evan Hull when Baker Mayfield's on the board in a superflex trade.
I think that Jacoby Brissett is a better player than
but he went
Baker Mayfield.
That's fine, but he's not starting as of right now. And
he's not starting as of right now, but you're not drafting guys to start anyway. You're drafting bench quarterbacks.
That's a good point.
What I'm saying, it's not a big deal. What you're waving this around like this was some revelatory draft pick, and that Baker Mayfield's the starter, and that we're all getting this information now. Like just in. No, we know Baker Mayfield.
Right,
we know he's starting. Okay, my larger point, by the way, is if you at this point are soured on Baker Mayfield, I don't blame you. And if you're not drafting him, that's fine. It won't hurt you. Okay, just so everybody knows.
That's not what it's about, though.
Baker Mayfield's never going to be anything in the league. Just so everybody knows, it's not going to hurt you. There's zero chance that he has this career renaissance. It is not going to happen at this point because not only did he flame out in Cleveland, also the Rams, right? There's multiple teams that have had really good looks at him, right? Carolina, and they said they've passed. So you've had all these teams that have passed. So that now where it's a dead certainty, he's not going to be a goddamn thing, okay? That we know, okay? What is interesting, though, is he could exceed expectations this year. I think I'm ready for that because I believe he has been playing with torn labrums and rib cartilage and all these things, and he's a warrior, and I think he will be interesting this year. But to me, that's the case for moving up Godwin and smashing Godwin. That's the case for smashing Rachaad White. I think that you're bearing the lead. I think the real case is for White and Godwin. These are two of the best values in all of Dynasty, and Mayfield's part of that story, why they're such great values, because his brand has been so damaged that he's dragging down Godwin and he's dragging down Rachaad White. And if that's what you're objecting to, then I agree with you.
Yeah, go ahead, Theo. Cap that off before we move on to actually, you know what? The next topic is really Rachaad White, and he's sitting there on basically like a tier of his own. I know the Player Profiler Dynasty rankings have him higher than the whole industry. I've checked around, and I get the case, but I'm just always worried about a third-round running back getting, Tyler Algiered. But of course, there's always Damian Pierce, who didn't get Tyler Algiered. Basically, someone drafted with higher draft capital. So now that we've digested the draft, Tampa Bay didn't do a damn thing at running back. Is Player Profiler going to stay high, meaning top 12 running back on Rachaad White? How safe is his multi-year outlook to you?
Okay, Tyler Knable, we'll just call him Tyler Football. It's a hard name to you'll hear more from Tyler in the months ahead at Player Profile, but he is in the chat, and I love to see Tyler in the chat. And he writes something that I have no idea what it means. Evan Hull is from my hometown. That's great. He went to Northwestern. I went to Northwestern too. So we both have Evan Hull connections. I don't know if anyone knows I went to Northwestern. So Evan Hull is from my hometown. He says, pretty sure I'd truck stick him. Not gonna lie. I don't know what that means.
I think it's a Madden reference. I think it's a Madden reference where you hit the truck button. I think he thinks he would knock him over. I think it was like I'd be so excited that I would knock him over, if I'm reading that correctly. Tyler's a little younger than me, but I'd like to be able to code that. I'd be able to code that. I think it's something with knocking him over.
Theo, where did you go to school? We heard where Matt went to school. Where did you go to school?
University of Maryland, College Park. How about you, Alan? The Terps.
I'm a product
home
of
Stephon Diggs.
Yeah,
home of Diggs. Home of Vernon
Did you
Davis.
talk to Diggs about this? You guys bonded over this?
I know some people. I actually know the athletic director at Diggs's high school pretty well. Good Counsel High School, big time powerhouse in the DC area. So I have some connections, but I don't know Diggs.
Okay. How about you, Alan?
I'm a product of the SUNY college system in New York. I'm an Albany guy, so
all right.
Yeah,
isn't that where they have the cult? And they have the cult up there in Albany, and the sex cult.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's very hedonistic. Albany is usually
Alan, don't bury the lead. Alan might have started it when he was at University of Albany.
Alan, have you had your genitals tattooed?
I'm basically the David Koresh up there. I was.
I feel bad for Albany. It's like literally the capital of one of the most populous and productive and wealthy states in the country. They could be its own country, right? And the state of New York could be its own country. I don't know. It probably ranks in the GDP in the top 100 if it was its own country. And the capital is Albany. And whenever anyone says Albany, all I can think is sex cult.
Yeah, I mean, that's
all I can think of is tattooed. And no, it's not tattooed. It's branded. Branded genitals. Your genitals aren't branded, are they?
Who doesn't brand their genitals? You don't do that?
Branding of genitals.
I do that for fun on like a Tuesday. Kidding me?
Of course you do.
Yeah.
You're Alan.
Rachaad. Oh, boy. You just got me all hot and bothered. Now I'm all horny.
You know what? Here's the thing. We're about to talk about Rachaad White, and Alan Seslowsky has an RW brand on his genitals.
Right, for RotoWire.
There you go, Alan.
Yep.
No, I mean,
Rachaad White. Are you comfortable now? I want to hear it. Multi-season outlook, because I took him in our dynasty league here, this startup, and when you're taking a running back, you can't have these guys fall out in 1 year. In the rounds that I'm taking him, that 5th, 6th round, you need to have at least a good 2-3 year outlook on these guys. Was that a good pick, or could I be in trouble sometime next year?
Rachaad White has already flashed very, very strong receiving ability. That will not disappear from his game. That kind of keeps him with a nice dynasty floor, even if the situation changes a year from now. The other counter argument is, Alan, the fact that they didn't go out and draft a running back in this particular draft class is very telling, because this was a deep running back class. They had multiple opportunities to add a running back, and they didn't do that. I think the ball is in Rachaad White's court. This year could be a very big year for him, and he could kind of cement himself for future seasons. I mean, I think we were correct. We were ahead of the market on Rachaad White. Everybody predicted gloom and doom. We stayed unwavering in our ranking for him. We have him running back 14, and that's where he's at. Rachaad White is moving up in redraft right now. And
wait, Theo, are you saying we have Rachaad White ahead of Brian Robinson?
We have had we would not even consider that one, Matt. That's just like,
God, White and Gibson have so many similarities. They just feel, I just feel that we're going to be ahead of consensus on these guys for years.
We like fantasy points, Matt. We like running backs who are athletic and can catch the ball. I mean, it's crazy. It's insane.
Weird.
It's insane.
All right. Yeah, no, that's so Rachaad White, good pick in there. Obviously a little bit of risk, but that's all priced in. The other
well, let's look. Actually, I'm curious. Let's look at. Oh, Leonard Fournette just went. Oh, yeah, I could have had him. I could have had Leonard Fournette. Oh,
you having draft button regret already on that? I mean, it's 20 years old.
Listen. I've when in doubt, I do what Theo tells me to do. That's always served me well. Let's put it that way. So let's see, where do you guys think that oh man, where did he go in this draft? I'm looking for him. Oh, there he is. Rachaad White went to one Alan Seslowsky at the 7-10.
I used the player.
Oh my God! Look
at
this value pocket. This is a player profiler value pocket right here. You ready for this? It went Kenny Pickett, Rachaad White, Chris Godwin.
It's very on brand. It's very on brand right there.
Those are the 3 picks in a row right there. I'm not going to give credit to Rhino for picking Chris Godwin, though.
A big hat tip to Rhino, though, our league mate. We talked about him a lot last week, Matt, and he retweeted the episode, so I will give him a hat tip on that.
No, some people, they run in a hole and they're never seen from again. I mean, Nate and I famously ended the career of Jeff Miller. There's this guy named Jeff Miller who attacked the show and Nate and I on Twitter, and then Nate did a rap and destroyed him on the show, and he retired from fantasy.
Listen, I'll admit the time that you came after me before I knew you, I was crawled in a ball a little bit trying to figure out what my next move was in life. So yeah, I can see how that could have an effect on someone,
Dude, you've been redeemed, Alan.
Yeah.
You've been redeemed. The dealer has turned over the cards, and it turns out that Trevor Lawrence was the right pick after all.
Go ahead, Theo.
This was a Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams thing. This was the reason you were going. Okay. I need a little context there.
It wasn't that the pick, it was
famously Allen selected in a single quarterback league, one where with a high quality quarterback draft class, where there would be good quarterbacks available in round 2. That's the context, Al. I'm just giving the context. Allen picked Trevor Lawrence at the 107 over Javonte Williams.
Great pick.
And I was furious.
Well,
because
what happened was
he was actually drafting against us because he was at the time he was with Roster Watch. Mm-hmm. So, but because I am loyal to content in the audience first and foremost, because I felt like that draft pick ruined the draft, ruined the mock draft, ruined the show, I was furious. But selfishly, I also knew that locked in the win for us to win the mock draft, because I was like, there's no way they can come back from that.
Yeah, well, like you just mentioned, I was working for Byron and Alex at Roster Watch, and I was still a little bit newer to doing this full time, and I was nervous that they were going to fire me because, that I was publicly embarrassing them. Obviously, now in hindsight, that's a ridiculous thought process.
No, yeah, of course, you knew that. Alan, you knew Byron and Alex know the shtick.
Well, yeah, and
you didn't know how well Byron and Alex understood how the mechanics of the show work, and so you actually walked away from that show nervous.
Not only nervous, I get a text from Byron right now. He goes, "Oh man, Podfather, and Nate, they're killing you right now, man." They go, "Don't watch the show." They just go, "Don't watch the show." So I referee high school basketball, Theo. I was at the game. I was blowing calls left and right. I couldn't. My head was all screwed up. I was like, "Oh wow, that was my career in fantasy lasted 3 months. That's great. That's great. I'm going to be the joke." So the only thing I knew what to do was come back and make a video goofing on myself, which is still pinned on my Twitter right now, and you can see that it's Nate and Podfather basically throwing the sledgehammer over me, but.
Dude, are you saying that Rhino, he could use this as a vault? He could actually, if he has the right mentality about this, that he could use this as a catapulting mechanism to help himself and help his career?
No, because Rhino liked that you guys were bagging on him. I didn't like it. And if he likes it, it'll be obvious. Like he was like, "Oh, this is great." They're talking about. And again, I understand he's an interesting electric personality, but you can't like fake being upset about it. Either you're upset about it or you're not.
Slow down.
Well, it's not
electric?
like a. Okay, another semantics here, but
words matter, Alan. This is a podcast.
Yeah. All right, it's a way of me saying he's a bad personality.
Maybe you should go back to your talking points and read off the paper that big media and big running game have provided you.
All right, here we go then. Kansas City doesn't draft a running back in the draft this year. Isiah Pacheco. That's my yuck Z100 voice. That's a Long Island reference right there, right, Theo? Z100.
No.
Big time.
What's holding back Kansas City? Your talking point is, Kansas City was the favorite before the draft, but since they didn't draft a running back, we can no longer favor Kansas City because they should have gone running back. In fact, they didn't bolster the running game enough, so Kansas City no longer should be the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. That's what the talking point would say.
Yeah, I don't know about that. No, that point has been put to bed. Don't make me have to make another revenge video here. But now, really, guys, getting back to some actionable stuff here, because people are in startups. We're in 2 right now. More startups are happening all the time, and there's a run on wide receivers. So you just really need these running backs in the middle rounds here. Isiah Pacheco is a starting running back, but at any moment, Theo, they could draft someone over him. They haven't done it yet, so you're safe for another year. Isiah Pacheco in the 6th, 7th round, properly valued, undervalued. What's going to be his situation moving forward, and how are you going to value him for the next couple of years here?
Well, I don't think you need to take a couple years, outlook here with Isiah Pacheco. You just need to go with him for this year, where he's got a really, really a nice role carved out. This is a guy that we were worried about, the Chiefs potentially adding a running back that was going to challenge him. Pacheco's in a fantastic spot. We moved him up the Dynasty rankings at Player Profiler. He was one of our big draft day winners among the veterans. Alan, I think we don't want to get redrafty here, but I think he's a value in redraft, and I think he's absolutely a value in Dynasty just based on the fact that people know that he's a 7th round draft pick, so the price is already going to be low because you're potentially getting a 1-year rental, but you're getting a 1-year rental in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Isiah Pacheco has a path for double-digit touchdowns this year. I think that's not a bold statement at all based on his situation and the talent that we've seen.
Podfather, I know you've been in touting.
Hold on. Can we just need this? That deserves something.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, guys.
Bravo. Well said.
Yeah, the only question I would have for him, though, is that where you're taking him in these dynasty leagues, you can't have him be a 1-year mercenary for you.
Sure you can.
Those are the area where you're getting 2-3 year running back. So if you're taking him there, where he goes, you got to hope that he's locked into the role he's in with the high touchdown upside for the next 2 years. I mean, where we're taking like the Dalvin Cook types, the Alvin Kamara, those are year-to-year propositions. And then as you get deeper with the Zekes, Fournettes, the guys who haven't signed yet, those are all 1-year propositions. So that's the only reason I bring him up, Theo and Matt, is that he's going at a fair value, but it just seems like that with the draft pedigree matters in the sense where if they even take like a 3rd-round running back at any point, that's a player now that has, higher draft capital, and that matters.
In the draft that we're in, he went around before Kendre Miller and David Montgomery, and in the same round as Zach Charbonnet. What's the problem?
I think that's fine.
He went 2 rounds after Dameon Pierce. What's the difference between Dameon Pierce and Isiah Pacheco, other than the fact that Pacheco's more explosive and in a much better offense? They're both in fragile situations as day 3 picks who could be replaced in the NFL draft next year.
And Alan, you also have the fact that it's like a control your own destiny situation for Pacheco, because by definition, if you have a double-digit touchdown season, and the Chiefs want to move on from you, another NFL team is going to give you an opportunity just based on your strong play on the field. So it's like Pacheco is going to earn himself potentially more dynasty longevity based on how he plays this season. But I think the general point is you're drafting him at a time where there's running backs that are past the age apex, who you can already see the downward side of their career is coming. And Pacheco has a little bit of a mystery behind him because of the draft capital, but he's got a great situation this year, and we believe in the talent. So that's a great time to take shots.
Yeah, and it's also about who's backfilled behind that, right? That also has to do with their safety. I think when you talk about Pierce, Podfather, you brought up Dameon Pierce. You couldn't have asked for a better backup running back for Pierce's value than Devin Singletary. Someone who
I could. I can find a better running back. I can find a worse running back than Devin Singletary.
Yeah, but you don't want someone worse.
I can. You know who it is? Yeah, I got a name for you. Ready for this name, Alan? A guy you drafted in this dynasty league we're in. I got a name for you. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Edwards-Helaire. Some might say that's the reason why Nate Liss isn't on this show, is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire stole Nate Liss's soul.
It's terrible. Yep. Well, Nate wasn't alone.
I said some might say. Listen. I said so. I've also, you know what? Here's the thing, Alan. Here's the thing. Okay? I went to those propaganda schools. I've taken those classes. Okay? I've sat in those lectures. Okay? So you can't get that bias with all your rhetorical tricks and your talking points from big media and big running game. You're not going to get. I was in those classes at Northwestern. I was part of it. I was part of the machine. I was part of the machine. So you can't pull these tricks on me. Okay, so I also know how to do these little caveats, right? Some might say little rhetorical tricks, right? I can do it all. So don't think you're going to get anything by us here, Alan, with your agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, but but you also have Jerick McKinnon there as too, and then the 7th round versus 4th round. Both, I'm interested in both guys. I'm interested in Pacheco. I'm interested in Dameon Pierce, especially if I'm forced to attack wide receivers early in my fantasy drafts, guys. We have with our last topic of the day, or last couple topics of the day. Just looking over some news here. Austin Eckler, he got basically they've come to an agreement. He's going to be there this year. Redraft, we already know he's locked in now as a top 5 pick, top 3 running back. So you could take him number 1 if you want. No one's going to object. But Dynasty, it's interesting because he's a super producer, but he's going to be out in the lonely free agent market next year, guys, and he's going to be 28 years old. Yet he's still going, the top 15 running backs in Dynasty. So good bet, bad bet, and you can't use the term win now when you're talking about him, Theo.
Okay, I won't use the term win now, but
why can't we use the term win now? Wait, what happened? Why can't we use win now?
Because that's the easy and obvious
answer. He's saying
it's
a crutch. It's a crutch argument, right, Alan?
Yes.
Okay, so without getting into the crutch argument, this is a guy who, in terms of overall use for his career, has far less carries than a lot of 28-year-old running backs. He had the fact that he was insulated with playing with Melvin Gordon, and also he did a lot of his work through the receiving game. So the thing about Eckler is I think that he's got a chance this year to provide you another top 5 running back season. I think we'd all agree on that, which has a lot of value, Alan, because we want to win our dynasty leagues this year. So it's not win now, but it helps. And then you have the fact that it's clearly a let's have a potential for a move on type season from Eckler. The Chargers will not want to pay him next year when he gets a little bit older, but he's going to be able to choose the team he joins. So let's say Austin Eckler goes and takes the Jerick McKinnon role in Kansas City. You can make many scenarios where Eckler's going to be able to maintain a lot of fantasy value, and with his skill set, he can age into a James White, where he's a guy who can catch 75 balls a year with, potential for an 80, 90 catches, with maybe taking a step back in terms of the goal line work and in terms of just the between the tackles work. But I think that kind of makes him a guy he's going to be worth more on your roster kind of guy when he's 30 than you're going to be getting for trade equity anyway. So I think that right now, if you have Austin Eckler, be happy that you get the one more season next to Justin Herbert. And then there's a chance that he's going to be able to be maintaining some value as he gets older, more so than most running backs do when they get to be 30.
Who was the last 30-year-old satellite back that was fantasy relevant?
Is it Sproles?
I think you got to go back to a guy like Darren Sproles. That's the issue. You're going to see Frank Gore's and Adrian Peterson's play out into age 30 and be productive and be fantasy assets. It's rare for a satellite back, given the dynamism that's required, to be fantasy relevant at age 30. What Austin Eckler has going for him, as Theo mentioned, 800 career carries. 800 career carries, rush attempts. That's the hope, is that he can remain dynamic for at least a couple more years. But he is 28. And because of that, he is not in the top 20 in our dynasty rankings. In our neutral, not win now, not rebuild, just our neutral dynasty rankings, he's outside the top 20. That's just being real about running backs. We get it over with moving down players like Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. We're not necessarily getting it over with Austin Eckler. We're just not going to be lingering with him in an area a year after really he should be in that particular tier. So we're going to be out ahead, getting these running backs slotted into the right tiers where they belong, where, for example, in our dynasty rankings, we're going to have an Eckler and a Rachaad White closer than almost anyone else, where you see other services where it's more of a chasm, but then you're like, wait, is this seasonal league? Is this redraft, or is this dynasty? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, we're realistic with the 3-year windows when we're looking at these guys, and we put a lot of thought into it. It's team context, Alan, for a lot of the situations when you talk about these older running backs, and that's why win now is not a crutch. I think win now is something you need to
look what happened to Aaron Jones. Look what happened to Aaron Jones. A year goes by and Aaron Jones' dynasty value has been cut in half because he's a year older. He had a disappointing season, and now he's in an offensive situation where he's going to struggle to score touchdowns.
Yep. I think the best comparison for fantasy, not player style, for Austin Eckler is what Derrick Henry has been over the last couple of years, where if you want to purchase the points of Austin Eckler on a playoff run and a team that has him is basically looking to gut their roster, you can offer that late first-round pick in week 9 and week 10 before your trade deadline, whenever it is. Whereas Derrick Henry, now you'd be lucky to get that, right? So Eckler, you might be able to get a first and a second. So in a win, if you're going to use him in the win now term, it's more of like an in-season buy. But he still goes pretty early in these dynasty startups. That's why I asked about him, because he seems to be defying. People are ignoring his situation from a 2-3 year outlook. So it's interesting that Theo still likes him.
I would try to trade for him, though. I would try to trade for him in week 9 if I'm contending and the team that has him is not. I would aggressively try to trade for him. That'd be the perfect. I would trade for him before I'd trade for Derrick Henry. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. And what do you think is the correct price where the person on the other side says, "Oh yeah, take him"?
I mean, I think if you're talking about like right now, to make a trade for us in season, I think you nailed
week 9.
Week 8, week 9, it's the random first. If you're trying to, rebuild a roster and your season is heading south, you're going to kind of somewhat take what you can get for these older running backs. If somebody dangles a first rounder for a running back that's 28 years old, you're taking that. I don't think you need to throw in the second, Alan, especially with you and all your super flex leagues. I talk to the single QB player just as much, Alan. We don't play favorites.
Yeah, this is like the Sunnis and the Shias. This single quarterback versus superflex argument here. This is getting very divisive. Very divisive.
Well, I did this last year. I can tell you, I rarely do this, and it didn't work out. I traded a first rounder for Mixon in a win now situation.
Same thing.
And the player that I would have had available to me in the first round was not inspiring.
Zay Flowers?
Because it would have been a Zay Flowers. Jordan Addison was off the board. Jordan Addison's the last inspiring player in rookie drafts. Once Jordan Addison's gone, it's like, am I going Kincaid? Am I going Zay? Am I going to reach for Kendre Miller? That's typically what I do. You're never feeling great about that. And so I'm happy to have Kendre Miller or Joe Mixon moving forward. Fine. For a win now team, I'd rather have Mixon still. So I'm happy with the decision I made. But there is that moment. There's always that moment where you have to take a step back and go, okay, actually, I just as soon have Mixon here. So what you did was right. But man, not having a first round pick sucks.
It's awful. It's awful.
Sucks, man.
It's so depressing.
Forget, you're in so many leagues. I'm in so many leagues now. I'm like, I thought I almost was going to email the league. I think there's a bug in the system. I don't have my first rounder.
Swear to God, it says I do it in every because I'm in 39 dynasty leagues, and I would say in my rookie drafts, 19 of them I'm missing my first round pick.
There's a mistake. There's a mistake that's been made.
It's a glitch, guys. It's a glitch. I would have never
total
traded
glitch. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then you have to walk back out your whole thought process and what happened. And you're like, technically that was good process. I'm still happy. But now I'm in this weird purgatory where I have a Mixon team that I don't necessarily think can win, but I don't have the patience to rebuild. Oh, Dynasty. Oh, man.
It's best game. It's best game on
Dynasty is a wicked woman sometimes, isn't it? It really is. She's just, God, puts you in difficult situations, man, but you're in love. There's nothing you can do.
But Matt, you went for it. You went for the title.
I went for it.
You went for it. I mean, that's like it. That some people need to remember. That's still our goal. We want to win Dynasty titles.
I'm trying to win, bro.
At the end of the day, you gotta push the chips in sometimes.
Yeah. Is that the show?
Alan?
I think it's the show. Is that the show,
I was
Alan?
waiting for it. I was going to say
Is that the show, Alan? God damn
Yeah,
it. I wasn't sure if it was the show, but then I looked at Alan and I thought, ooh, Alan thinks that's the show.
Right. Well, because Theo had a good last line.
No, it
His
was a great last
was,
line. And I was unfortunately, I was a little slow on the uptake.
Right,
so
right. When someone has a
for
great
Theo
last line,
Gremminger, for Alan Seslowsky, I'm the Podfather, and that is the show. Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.